People go into a deal trying to buy at 25%. People go into a deal trying to buy at 25% below market value and totally miss the fact that you're not trying to buy at 25% below market value. You're trying to solve the seller's problem.
Yeah.
Solve their problem, you'll get more deals.
Yeah.
It's a very good answer.
Oh, hi. Good evening.
Oh,
How are we all? It's Istvan and Peter here.
If I had known we had to do that, if I had known we had to do that.
Brilliant. So, hi guys, it's Istvan and Peter here. We got someone very special here this evening. We got this guy here, Kevin McDonnell. Kevin, how are you?
Hi everyone. All good, thanks.
Can you hear us? How you doing?
Thanks for inviting me. And yeah, good. So I've just got back from my office. I literally got in about 5 minutes ago, and my kid was screaming at me to play hide and seek. So I had to do 2 quick games of hide and seek and out to see you guys. So yeah,
thank you.
Well, look, we really appreciate you taking some time out from your family and join us. It's really obviously feel quite special about it. So look, for those of you who don't know who Kevin is, I'm going to do a very sort of quick introduction. I'm not going to go into any too much detail because I want him to speak about himself a little bit. But look, I've known Kevin for a few years now. He's been my trainer, my mentor for about 2.5 years. So we've known each other quite well. He's a guy I would like to call Mr. No Money Down. And he's got an amazing background in property. He's a fantastic person, a ton of knowledge. So hopefully, if you don't know him yet, hopefully after today, you will know him even more. So Kevin, thank you again after the quick intro to joining us. And look, we just want to really take this little call and have a really good chat with you this evening. And hopefully people will learn more about you as well as us.
Yeah, and I'm welcome here, Kevin. Thanks for being here.
Cheers. I'm all yours. So.
We never met before, but I heard a lot about you, and of course,
glad to be here, Peter.
Yeah, and also I read it not just once, and not just this. You might not know, be running a small business in Birmingham, and all my stuff who I'm hiring, and this is the first book they have to read. Honestly, this is 100%. I just want to ask my first question to you, if you don't mind. Could you please maybe tell us a bit more about yourself, perhaps your background maybe before you even started property?
Yeah, so I went to university, as some people do, and I studied quality management, and I got a job. I was in Ireland, and I got offered a person that lived in London that used to go to school with me said to me, would you consider going to London? And I was like, yeah, probably, in passing one holiday they were home on. And then about 2 weeks after, they sent me a message saying, you've got you an interview for a job. And I was like, I was just in the pub making a comment on passing. I didn't say I'd go to London. So anyway, I ended up in an interview, and the next thing I had a job, and I was in London to fast track that story. So I'm over in London, and I got a little bit lucky in a way, or unlucky. I was sharing a house with people. I was working for a company called Lang O'Rourke, and I was sharing a house with 4 other guys, all working for the same company. And one of them was South African, and he was buying property in South Africa, and he got me interested in property. And he took me to an event, like a free seminar, and I really started to get the property bug. And he told me he could teach me how to do it himself because he was buying property. So I listened to him. And he didn't know how to buy in London because it was too expensive. I didn't know how to buy in London. He was buying in South Africa. So I thought, oh, he's buying abroad. So I'll buy abroad. So I went to Turkey, Bulgaria, and Estonia. But William, my mate that was living with me, was actually not buying abroad. He was buying at home because he was South African. I went 3 countries that I didn't know the language, didn't know anything, and I ended up getting myself in a massive debt because I bought off plan on promises of mortgages that didn't happen. And one of the properties never got built. One's been completely trashed. The other one I managed to sell, but for like half what I paid for it, or less than half what I paid for it. And then that took me through up from 2002 to 2006. 2007, I did some training. 2008, the biggest crash in history came, and I decided to put my head in the sand and do nothing because I time everything wrong, and I did nothing until 2013, and then I went to the Progressive Property Super Conference at Wembley, and somebody I met in a training in 2007 was standing on stage saying how they were in debt and now they had a multi-million-pound portfolio, and I was like, shit, I've just done nothing for 6 years. You guys, you've gone and built a portfolio. I'm in. So I did some trainings and started doing rent to rent. I know you guys have been on about rent to rent, the challenge all week. So I started doing rent to rent initially to build up cash flow, lease options, assisted sales, and started creating cash and then buying property with JV partners. And built up a significant portfolio in Nottinghamshire of stuff I own, stuff I co-own with JV partners, and then stuff I've got control of on lease options and rent to rents. So that was like a 17-ish year journey in 4 minutes or something. But then obviously I wrote the No Money Down book in 2018, and I went a bit crazy. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
That's great. It's a great summary. I think I've certainly heard that a few times, but hopefully there's people watching tonight who haven't heard most of his stories. So, Kevin, I think you've achieved a lot, and you have certainly had your ups and downs. One thing a lot of people ask is, if someone who's a property investor and does so many things in property, and you're known as Mr. No Money Down, but what sort of made you become a trainer? What sort of got to the point where it triggered you that, okay, look, property is great, but that's not just what I want to do property. I want to train people. What was the trigger for you? Why did you come to this conclusion?
That actually happened by accident, really. Literally, I went to Progressive 2013 for the Super Conference, 2014, end of 13, and then through 14, I did my trainings, and my aim was replace my income. And I replaced my income, and I thought I'd always want to just cover my income. And when I replaced my income, I thought, well, if I quit my job, then I've got my income. But if a boiler breaks or something needs to be done, will I get a mortgage, etc.? So I stayed in my job and I doubled the income, but I doubled it quicker than it took me to replace it. And then I stayed again, and then I went 3 days a week, and I built up a decent portfolio of rent-to-rent properties and started to buy and started to do some more creative stuff. And I was being mentored at Progressive. Rob Moore and Mark Homer were mentoring me. So everyone has got a mentor at some point. And with my wife at the time, we moved house because we literally had tenants next door to us, because we had 2 houses from the same landlord, and we were living in one because I couldn't afford to buy my own and I couldn't afford to rent one. So I was literally living in a rent-to-rent and renting the next one next door. And my wife was out of her job. We got her out. It was easy for her because she was on about $1,000 a month. And the tenants next door were right next door. She's meeting tenants everywhere because she was doing the tenant management. So we said we'd move house, and we moved to Chesterfield, which is like 2.5 hours from Peterborough with traffic on a Friday or on stuff. And we'd only just moved probably 6-ish months, and Progressive said, would you be interested in like teaching some people about some of the stuff you're doing? I literally hadn't any real consideration of being a speaker. Before that, actually, I started hosting PPN Sheffield. So hosting PPN Sheffield from towards the end of 2014, after I was a year in, into 2015, because it was about build your network. So I'll host a networking event. That'll build my network. So that was my first sort of introduction to speaking, but it wasn't really speaking because I was just a host. I was listening to the other speakers. But after a year into 2016, Progressive said, do you want to like help out with some trainings? And I just started helping, as in shadowing and supporting the other trainers. And then 2017, they asked me if I'd run what I do and the No Money Down strategies, if I'd run it and teach it for people at Progressive. So I said, okay, I'll give it a go. And I ran the first event in January 17 to like 13 people. And there was lots of Progressive people there watching to see if it was any good and asking for feedback and stuff, and kind of just grew from there. So I didn't actually ever want to be a speaker. Literally, I started in property 2003, 2017, 14 years later, I was just a property investor. So I didn't like do property for 6 months and become a speaker, or 3 months or stuff. It was literally, my thing is property, and the speaking is the other bit. And the reason I do it with Progressive is because I don't have any aspiration to run my own company, to be a big like speaker. I just want to give back, help out. And the reason I do it with Progressive, I guess, is because I was in property 10 years when I went to that super conference, and I had built a debt. And going to that super conference, whether it was the timing, the knowledge, I realized I had to flipping do something. I couldn't keep messing about. Whatever it was, being mentored aggressive and doing the trainings there changed my life, built my portfolio. And I guess I wanted to give back because I owed them, in my eyes, a debt of gratitude for what they did for me. So, which is why I started to give back. And I think it's important to give some time back when you've done stuff as well. Because otherwise, what's the point of life? And when I quit my job and I was full-time in property, and you'll know this, Istvan, because you've recently quit your job and gone full-time property, is you're stuck between four walls with nobody around and your wife and kids. And at the time, I had a wife and one child on the way. Because I had only one child on the way, there was nothing entertaining her apart from wanting to spend all the time with me. And I love my wife. I hope she's not listening on StreamYard. I'm not, but spending all day with you is like too much time. And same both ways. So I needed to get out of the house. And the one thing I missed about my job, and people say, be careful what you wish for, because people wish to leave their jobs. And honestly, I don't miss the job. I don't miss the construction world. I don't miss any of that stuff. And if anybody's watching thinking, no, it's okay if you're in property because you did construction, we were building airports. It's nothing to do with houses. It was like different big stuff. But the only thing I miss about my job is the people. I miss the Irish had said the crack, the fun in the morning. I miss the coffee breaks, the lunch breaks, the chats with your guys at work. I don't miss the work. And teaching, being a progressive and coaching and mentoring, whatever, it replaces the meeting the people bit. Yeah. Well, property can be very lonely if you're not meeting people.
It's that interaction with people, isn't it?
Yeah, property is very, very lonely if you're not meeting people.
Agreed.
Absolutely. It's a great story, and obviously I never heard. No, I lying, because I heard you a lot of times, podcasts. When I was driving, I was commuting. I just left my job just not long before Istvan, and when I did my job and I was commuting between my workplaces, I was listening a lot of people from property, and you was one of them, and it's a great story. And yes, it really encouraged the people. If you feel something, you want to change it, you can do it. And my question I'm gonna ask you is pretty much I always wanted to ask you, and also it's most of the people who are audience, they might just want to start. They're just planning to start in property. So my question was before I started to property as well. What really no money down mean? I mean, your opinion, a lot of people skeptical when they heard about all this stuff. Just suddenly the light just opened and you heard a lot of stuff. You can do this, you can do that, JV, and a lot of people maybe don't believe it. I was one of them. I was really skeptical when I read your book, and I was thinking, no, it can't be so easy. No way, it's just like that. So, but yeah, you're absolutely right, guys. All of them can be done. All of them, everything is in the book. And yeah, so please, what no money down mean for you, Kevin?
Yeah, so I mean, geez, when you write a book called No Money Down, you bring so many what I call keyboard warriors and people going, oh, you can't do that. It's just a ridiculous thing. No money down, etc. And then I say, well, are you in property? Have you even tried? Because no money down, and they'll go, oh yeah, they're trying to say it's no money down, but then there's not no money down at all. They're just saying that to hook you in, etc. All this stuff. But I make it very clear to people right from my book before you ever meet me. No money down means 4 things, right? It means literally no money down, because I know people and I've taught people who do deals with 0 money. You can get rent-free periods from landlords, you can get option agreements, you can get deals with 0 money. So it's no money, none of your own money, so someone else's money, joint venture partner, it could be and it doesn't have to be just a JV partner, it could be the vendor. That people go and find a deal and then go looking for the money from a JV partner when the money could be the owner of the house, because the money's actually in the bricks and mortar of the house. So why don't you JV with the owner? So it's no money, none of your own money, right? No money left in, so you'd refurbish, refinance, leave no money in, or very little money. Now somebody's going to go immediately, the keyboard warrior, oh, very little money is no money. That's
I knew it.
No money down.
I knew it.
Yeah. but very little money. If you're trying to buy a house and build a property portfolio and you need 25% deposit to buy the house, and you need stamp duty money and legal money and refurb money, that you could be talking, depending on, in an average part of the UK, you're talking 60, 70 grand. If you can get the keys of that house for 2-3 grand, the leverage is phenomenal. Now that 2 to 3 grand, one of the first rent deals I did, I needed about just under 3 grand to do the deal. It was 2.5-ish grand to do the deal. I put it on a credit card, literally, because what I was doing was I was getting furniture, fridge freezers, washing machines. I got a 0% interest credit card, and I put the 3 grand or 2.5-ish grand on the credit card. 0% for 18 months, paid it back within a few months. Not advocating getting a credit card to go on holiday and buy handbags and whatever, but use it to invest in something that makes you a return that can make you wealthy. Now, that is, when I talk about the concept of no money down, it is not exchanging your time for money in a job, building up a deposit. It is being creative to create the money. Why would you not use a credit card? Oh, but that is your money, you owe the money. But it's not money where you have gone to work exchanging time for it. You've got I spent 14 years working for Lang O'Rourke, exchanging my time to build their dream. Now what I do is I use my money to work hard for me, or I use credit card money to work hard for me, or I use a JV partner's money to work hard for me, or a vendor's money, or a landlord's money to work hard for me. And anybody can when they change their mindset, because any wealthy person on this planet, they started somewhere. And yes, some of them started wealthy, but most didn't. Most started with nothing. Most of the most successful people start with nothing. So that's no money down, no matter where it comes from. So I say for anyone who's thinking, oh, no money down, get out of your own way and start looking at it in a different way. Because if you're in a job and you're not getting ahead and all you're going is, oh, it can't be that simple, shit, you're already given up on your life. Get out of your way, look at the bigger picture, open your mind up and think outside the box. And no money down concept is about thinking outside of the box. It's not about no money needed. There's always money needed. There's always property needed. It doesn't have to be money where you earned it in a job.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good. Thank you for that. Look, I think, I've heard lots of this in the last few years because obviously I've been very close contact with you, but I think it's really good for you to explain to people as well, because it's always a bit of a question mark, like Peter just explained.
Not in COVID times. No close... Istvan, no close contact in COVID times.
Yeah, okay. Well, we are coming out of a lockdown soon, so that's okay, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so thanks for explaining that. I think another thing that I always, for me, you're one of the most creative people out there when it comes to property deals. So one thing that attracted me to your course and your mentorship right at the start was, some of the deals that you've done and some of the deals that you've presented just looked absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, blown my mind in your 3-day course, for example, when you talk about lease options and exchange with delayed completion, all these sort of things that most people have no idea that they even exist, and I certainly didn't. Now, when you learn about it, of course, it's very attractive. People absolutely love the idea because, like you just said, you can acquire properties with a lot less money than your 25% deposit, just because you know the ins and outs of how to work the system and how to offer the right deal. Now, my question to you on that, Kevin, is what was the most complicated deal you've ever done, and why was it so complicated, and how did you structure it? Because I think people love hearing about this. I know this for a fact. So if you could tell us that, if you got one example that you could tell about, that would be great.
Oh. So obviously the bowling club deal comes to mind as a complex deal because we had 4 JV partners in the deal. We had initially what happened was there's been a few, but this was a decent example. So a guy that I had beaten to another deal told me that the bowling club in my town, I never tell people where I am because your area is your area, my area is mine. So the bowling club in my area, not your area, came available. And a guy that was local to me that I had beaten to another deal messaged me saying, have you seen the bowling greens available for sale? I'm looking at it. I know the chairman. I'm interested in it. Would you be interested in a JV? So I thought, okay. And I always say to people, 50% of something is better than 100% of nothing. So I thought, okay, I'll have a look at it. What do you need from me? And he said, well, I need you to negotiate the deal because I don't know how to negotiate the deal. So I'll bring you the deal, you negotiate it. And I thought, okay, cool. Who's putting the money in here? And he said, oh, well, we'll figure that out later. So I went and I met the chairman of the bowling club, and it comes to mind because I'm looking at myself and I can see a snooker table behind me. But I used to play pool for Ireland, so I was a professional pool player. And when I played pool for Ireland, so I'm in my office. So I've won like all of these sort of trophies and a bunch more over there. And I sit here at my desk and then I play pool. My wife thinks I'm working, but I'm really playing pool. Don't tell her. So my dad, God rest his soul, he died 20 years ago, but he always said to me when I was growing up, I'd come home from town, I'd go playing pool, I'd come home from town and I'd have a trophy or I'd have some money that I'd won or something. And I'd come in all happy on a Saturday night or Friday night, having won a competition. When I was like 12, 13 and I was beating people in their 20s, and he'd say to me, I'd walk in going, look what I won. And he'd go, that'll never put bread on the table. And he was just wanting me to get educated because I was kind of not really that great in school. And he was right, like that'll never put bread on the table, because I actually got to play for Ireland. I became a semi-professional pool player. I played in European championships and stuff, and I never made a penny. And it cost me. I made the quarterfinal of 2 big tournaments, and the money I made from getting to the quarterfinals, I spent getting there in terms of travel, accommodation, everything else. Picked the wrong sport. I should have done golf. But then in 2008, when I lost my money in Eastern Europe, in 2007, 2008, I tried to continue to play, but I quit in 2008 because I couldn't afford to go anymore because I was in so much debt. And I've never really played major tournaments since. But I'd never made me any money, but it was my passion. And then I walked into this bowling green for a meeting with the chairman. And when I walked in, there was 2 snooker tables and some poker tables. And as soon as I seen the snooker table, I just said to him, do you play? And I always say to people, property deals, it's a people business. Rapport, commonality, connection. Ignore the deal. Stop chasing the deal. Stop telling them this isn't nice, that's not nice, that needs replacing, because you're punching them in the face. Build rapport, get them to like you. So I said, do you want a game? So we had a game of snooker. We're talking about the club. And he starts telling me how there's 12 teams in the local league. There's 8 games. When they play a home game, they play it at home on their green outside. When they play an away game, 8 times out of 11, they play it at home. Because 8 of the other 12 teams in the league have already lost their clubs because they've gone into debt and lost their clubs because people don't play bowls anymore. It's a dying sport, and they're not getting any money in from membership, and they needed to sell part of their building or all of their building to basically keep the club alive. And so he's telling me why they're selling. They've got 2 full-time staff, a barman and a greensman, and they're paying their wages and they're in debt. They've got directors' loans done to the company. So the committee have literally lent money to this company to try and keep it afloat, and they need to sell some of the building. Now, I didn't want the snooker room area because it was a flat roof building. And have you been to my area, Istvan?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
So you'll have seen this building. You've seen this building. So the snooker club area is the flat roof bit. And then there's a 3-story building and a 2-story building that I was interested in. And we've actually purchased it and converted it into a 12-bed all-ensuite HMO. But what I said to him was, I kept chatting to him before I bought it, obviously, kept chatting to him. And he said, we walked around and stuff. We came back, we had a drink and another game of snooker. And he said, so would you be interested? And I said, well, it depends. And he says, well, we've got another offer. There's this Chinese company, they're looking to buy it, they want to convert it into a Chinese restaurant and stuff, and a couple of apartments. And they've got an offer on the table. Now, their offer was around 150 grand. And I said, well, as soon as he said that to me, he says, would you be interested in making an offer? What would you offer? And I said, well, to be honest, it's not about the money. And he said, how do you mean? And I said, well, it's not about the money. This is about the long-term stability of your club. If I was to make you an offer or buy the building, number one is I don't want this snooker area. I'm interested in the buildings next door. I would want you to be able to keep your club, keep the business surviving. It's about the long-term stability of the club. So if I was to do anything with you, I want to make sure that we're going to be your neighbor. I want to be able to come in here, have a drink, have a game of snooker with you. We're living next, I won't be personally living next door, but I'll have people living next door to you. We've got the club. But we need to make sure that we save the club. bye-bye Chinese investor, bye-bye offer, because it's not about the money anymore. I'm more interested in them than the money. We agreed to buy that for 138 grand, 12 grand less than the Chinese offer. After we agreed the purchase, the chairman and the committee came back to me and said, the Chinese came back with a significantly higher offer, and they've turned it down because we were looking after the long-term security of the club. Now, the other benefit here is we're converting this to a 12-bed all-ensuite HMO, and to do that, we needed planning permission. Now, if I bought the building up front and then applied for planning permission, they could object to it because I already own it. So we secured it on an option agreement subject to planning. So we got it on an option agreement subject to planning, got the planning, then purchased it. Okay. Now on the 138 grand, they owed about 18-ish grand in director's loans, 20K. I asked him what his cost of running the club was. So his club running costs are 7 grand a year. So we worked out that if we give them 7 grand a year, their club would survive for about 15 years. So I said, well, what about after we complete the purchase, that you were to lend money back and we give you 5% interest a year on that money? And they thought, okay, that's cool. So if 100 grand lent back at 5% interest, it's 5 grand a year, meaning that they're only spending 2 grand a year. So their club will survive for many years more. So we structured the deal creatively and solved their problem. Then there was me, and I've got a deal done. There's me and my business partner, Ben, and neither of us have any money. Now I've got a deal, we've secured everything, we're flipping penniless. So we found a JV partner to put the money in. So now there's 3 of us in the bed. So have you ever had a 3 in a bed, guys? So we've got 3 in a bed, right? JV partner, me, and the money guy, me, and Ben, who literally just picked up the phone. Now, I was starting to do a lot more stuff. I was getting busy with property. I hadn't really done a 12-bed all-ensuite HMO. It was the first, the biggest project I took on. So I didn't want to project manage it, all that sort of stuff. So what we did was we did a deal with the builder. So we said to the builder, come in, you get paid. We get 3 quotes. You come in and do the build, right? We've got 3 quotes. You do the build. You come in with a competitive quote. So you get paid for doing the build, but you also get 25% of the club. So we did a 4-way split. Ben picked up the phone to me. I negotiated the deal. The money person put the money in, and the builder got paid to build it and got 25%. So 4-way split. And now you tell me that's not a no money down deal for me, for Ben, and for the builder, because one person put the funds in. So that's what I talk about the concept of no money down. That's one creative deal.
I think that's, to be honest, that's an amazing deal. That's for sure. Amazingly creative. But I think one thing is really that strikes me about the whole thing that you said is, and that's what something we spoke about with our guys who are doing the challenge with us right now, is that it's all about solving problems. So you just with this one deal, you solve so many people's problems. And it really wasn't about the money, right? You solved the problem of the people of the club, the investor who needed to put the money somewhere, the builder who needed the work. There's just so many people's problems being solved with this one deal. So I think that is one thing that's always overlooked by people. And I think you're right about saying, don't just chase the money and the deal. It's about finding out what the problem is and then providing the right solution, not just any solution. So yeah, awesome. Well done on that deal. I saw it. It's a great.
Sorry?
People go into a deal trying to buy at 25%. People go into a deal trying to buy at 25% below market value and totally miss the fact that you're not trying to buy at 25% below market value. You're trying to solve the seller's problem.
Yeah.
Solve their problem, you'll get more deals.
Yeah.
It's a very good, honestly, it's a very good story. I never heard before. And as Istvan mentioned, today Q&A, and someone just asked the question exactly what you said. Can you guys give me BMV scripts? That was the question, because I want to negotiate BMV deals. And we just said exactly the same. You just exactly. So if you hear mate and watching tonight show, that's exactly the answer there. Kevin just said. So he solved all parties' problem. And as I said earlier, bigger problem you solve, more money you make. And it's not about we want to put 20, 25, 30% off for people who maybe don't even know you and maybe just going to shut the door on you. But rather try to find out what the issue was, the problem, and try to solve them. And if you, of course, that's why your book is great, because if you don't know these strategies, you might going to be struggling. But if somebody's read or going to read Kevin's book, almost all of the creative strategies there. So once you read them and once you know them, and if you're asking the right questions, you can use whichever the situation dictate, actually. So it was a great story, honestly. And you just mentioned the most complicated deal. I just want to ask, how about your first deal? How long did it take? And also, if you remember any complication, maybe. So how long did it take?
The first deal in Eastern Europe, or the first deal that I did right?
The first deal when you made money.
I moved up. I was in living in London with Lang O'Rourke, and they built a new concrete factory to provide precast concrete construction sites up in Nottinghamshire. So this was around 2009-ish. They built it. So towards the end of 2009, I moved from London up north. Now, when I was in London, I'll go back to it, actually coming from Ireland. When I did my job interview for Lang O'Rourke, I said to them at the time, I'm not going to take the job because I don't know London, I don't know the area, and it's really expensive. I've looked for some accommodation, it's really expensive. And they said, well, we'll put you up in a company house. Now, the reason I ended up in the first place living in a house with 4 other people that work in Lang O'Rourke, 5 of us together, was they actually had corporate let properties. They used to rent properties and rent them out to their workers. So in that house, I had the lad from South Africa, me, and then we had 3 lads that came down from Newcastle, Birmingham, and then a lad in the Midlands somewhere. I think it was around, I don't know what it's called. There's a nice parks thing near Peterborough, on the other side. I don't know what the area is called. I can't remember. But 3 people in that property from the UK. They were married guys who would work in London Monday to Friday and then go home to their family at weekend. So Lang O'Rourke used to hire the house, rent the house, and put 5 workers in, which is literally rent to rent. They had a company let agreement, and we were living there. And so I was getting free rent. Now, when I said to them, I'm not coming to London, I don't want, I can't, the accommodation's too expensive, etc. I don't even know where to start looking. They said, well, we'll put you up in a company house until you find your feet. So I thought, okay. So I moved into that house in 2002, right? And by 2009, I hadn't quite found my feet. So so I'd always lived rent-free. Now that sounds amazing, by the way. Rent-free is amazing. I was saving loads of money, especially rent-free in London, but I was stupid. And all the money I had saved, I put it into off-plan property abroad. That's how I ended up going abroad, getting off-plan. I was thinking, I'm saving some money. How can I invest it? And I invested it in the wrong place. Then I got no mortgages. Then I had to take out loans and credit cards. And I left myself in the shit because I had put down this small deposit to start with no idea how I was going to buy it in the end. And one of the things I always say to people now, and I'm very strong about, is start with the end in mind. Don't go into a deal unless you know how you're getting out. Because I went into these off-plan deals with no idea how I was getting out of them. And it left me in a huge mess. So then when Lang O'Rourke moved me up north in 2009, it wasn't in my contract that they provided accommodation, because it was until I found my feet. So when they moved my job, they no longer provided me accommodation. So I had to go look for a house. So I started renting for a while, and I'm trying to rent. I'm living in a room. I'm still in HMOs, and I'm renting for a few years, trying to get on top of things. I came to Progressive. I heard about rent to rent. I started implementing rent to rent. And then I thought, well, hang on a second. I'm living in a room in a shared house. I'm paying rent. Why don't I do a rent to rent and live in it and rent the other rooms out? So instead of making 600-700 quid a month profit, 1,000 a month profit, I'll just not make any profit, but live for free. So I found a property. I took it on. It was a 4-bed house. I turned there was 4 bedrooms, and 1 had an ensuite. There was the main bathroom. Then there was a little downstairs toilet, a kitchen, and then a sitting room and a living room. So I thought, well, I'll turn the living room into a 5th bedroom. So I moved into the property. I took it on a guaranteed rent for 3 years, and I moved into the property with 3 years guaranteed initially, but I actually had an option to buy. Okay, so I bolted on an option to buy at the start. So initially it was 3 years, then bolted on an option to buy any time in 12 years. So that all created further, as I got to become more creative, I started doing more creative stuff. But I moved in, I lived in one of the bedrooms, I turned the little room into an office, and I rented the other 3 rooms out. So I was doing guaranteed rent at $575 a month, and I rented out 3 bedrooms at $325 each, bringing in $975. I was paying $575 rent, and the rest of the money covered the bills, the gas, the electric, the council tax. So I literally had the little bedroom was an office, and I had a free bedroom on my own. So that was the first deal that I did, in terms of, didn't make me any money, but it saved me spending money on rent.
But I think it's, again, a good example of how creative you can be when you need to be. I think you sound like you had a bit of a push, because you were used to the fact that you had no rent to pay, and I think all of a sudden when you have to pay your own rent, it's a bit of a shock to the system and your wallet. So you kind of have to come up with an idea of mitigating it. Yeah, I mean, I can't remember.
At least it wasn't no.
Yeah, go on.
I was going to say, at least it wasn't no rent in London and then rent in London. There was no rent in London and rent in the north, so it was a bit cheaper, but it was still a hit.
I think the last time I had no rent to pay was when I was living at home, to be honest. So must have been a nice feeling to have that for 7 years living in London and not paying rent. That's pretty amazing.
But I completely blew the opportunity by using that saved money and spending it in Eastern Europe. And this is the thing: people with money, by the way, don't make smart choices. Sometimes they make stupid choices. Having money doesn't make you knowledgeable. Having knowledge makes you money.
Yeah, absolutely. But don't forget, if you never go through this kind of experience, people used to say, then you're never going to be really experienced. I mean, I had myself a lot of times fell down in my life, different reasons and a different country. But last time when I did, I thought I'm never going to stand up because maybe this business is not for me. Maybe I'm not good enough. Like I used to think I'm good. And I was entrepreneur from very, very young age. But when I came here in UK 6 years ago, I thought maybe business is not good for me. So I might just work is easier. But obviously, if you have something inside, and that's never going to let you give up. And especially when you see people like yourself and other people with like-minded people and all this creative strategy. When I first heard, it's a really good thing to not just want something, but also doing for it. So I believe going through bad times, losing money is not a bad thing. It's not, and as long as you're not giving up. So because when you go through the bad time, then that's how you're going to become more experienced. At least for me, it helped a lot. Understand people, understand business. Because when you're up and when everything is good, everybody good. But when you fell down really from high and you're losing money and you don't give up and you stand up again, that's something which is a really good thing. Like you did. You had a lot of debt and you still, a lot of people would say, okay, I lost so much money. I will never go even close to property or any business. But you said, okay, let's get the money back and let's go ahead and let's do it, which is a great thing. And my question is very, very close to belong to this. What would you, if you had a time machine and you could go back in a time to yourself when you sit in a property event, let's say in a progressive event, what would you say to yourself?
If to do something different, is it?
Yeah. So if you had a time machine, just to go back there, when you were sitting there, listening to all this kind of stuff, and you was thinking about to go into property, what would you say to yourself? What would you advise to yourself?
So simple, because I'll add a bit on that, on what you said about debt as well, because the biggest mistake, I always say to people, the biggest mistake I ever made was to spend money in Eastern Europe. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but it was also the best thing that ever happened to me, because people say to me, why did you keep going? Being in so much debt, it must have been hard to keep going. But the reality is if I lost 20 grand in Eastern Europe, I lost 135 grand. I mean, I was in debt for over 100 grand. I lost 135 grand of money I didn't have. I had to meet these payments and take out credit cards and loans. If I lost 20 grand, I would have quit property, never gone near it again. It would have been the worst experience of my life. I'd have gone into my job and I'd have earned my way out of a debt. The thing is, I got lucky in a way because I lost so much money that from 2007 to 2013, I reduced my debt to just over 100 grand. And I realized that the thing that put me in debt was property. And the only thing that could actually get me out of debt was property. So, because that's the only thing you'll make that sort of money on. So I had no choice but to keep going. That was easy for me. A lot of people, the problem is they're comfortable. They have a choice. They can stay watching Netflix or watch Coronation Street or take the kids to the park or do whatever they want to do. They're comfortable. I literally had no choice but to keep going. I was in so much shit that it was just go into more shit. So that's that bit, first of all, Peter. But then what would I have said to myself? So I sat in a room in London in 2003. Now, Rob Moore and Mark Homer have built a 750 plus property portfolio that they own, co-own and manage. They're building a development in Peterborough at the moment with 99 apartments. Right, they're way ahead of me. I'm doing well. I've got a multi-million-pound portfolio. I'm very, very comfortable. I'm making 20 plus grand a month on my portfolio. I'm in a dream world away from where I was. If I told my mum how I'm doing today, she'd drop dead in the morning. She has no idea. It's not real to her because we grew up in a working class family. But I'm the youngest of 8 kids and they all work in jobs. They're not doing property. But I started property 2003, right? 2003. I went to an event in London with my mate William that shared a house with me. That was 4 years before Rob Moore and Mark Homer even met. Okay, before they even met. And I went to that event and I seen a guy standing on stage telling me you could do creative strategies, you could do lease options, you could do single let, buy to let, you could buy, refurbish, refinance. And I got it. I got that more millionaires and more billionaires created in property than anything else. The richest people on this planet have either made their money in property or invest their money into property. I was all in. And they offered me a chance to do training. And I was like, I'm going to do the training. And William's like, what's wrong with you? And I said, I'm going to get I'm doing the training. And he said, don't be stupid. All you've got to do is buy a house. I've already bought 6. You don't need training. You can read it in a book. You can learn it on Google. You don't need training. I'll teach you what you need to know. So I thought, bingo, I don't need to spend all of this money on training. My mate, the professional investor with the 6 houses in South Africa, will teach me how to do property. And he taught me that you couldn't buy in England, you couldn't even buy in the UK, that you needed to go abroad. So if I could sit beside myself ever again, I'd turn to myself and say, do not listen to him. But I'm over it. I'm over it.
Oh, very good. We got a question to you, Kevin. Actually, I'm gonna stick it up on the screen, so you won't see me very much. But can you see the screen? Can you see the question?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm always inspired hearing how this story began. Not to mention how quickly it happened. Quickly, it took 17 odd years. It took 12 years. Once the ball was rolling. I'm curious. Yeah, at least you said once the ball was rolling. Yeah. I'm curious how quickly you were able to leave your job and how quickly you got to save 5K a month. Okay, so I started in property 2003. I mean, I was an overnight success, right? I started in 2003. By 2007, 4 years later, I'm in 135 grand in debt. By 2013, 10 years into property, I'm still in 100 grand debt really quickly. Overnight success. And I started doing rent to rent. Cash flow. I needed cash flow. I couldn't put down deposits to buy houses. I needed cash. I started doing rent to rent 2014. By the end of by about seven months into 2014, I was on about 3 grand a month. By the end of 2014, I was on 6 grand a month. So I got to 3 grand in about 6 or 7 months. I got to 6 grand. So say 7 months to get to 3 grand. 5 months later, I had doubled it. Why? Because I was getting better. Then I started doing some of the other strategies, the lease options and stuff. And I quit my job. I got to 10 grand a month. And then I went 3 days a week. Now that sounds ridiculous, but I always say to people, don't jump out of the airplane till you've built your parachute first, because you see people quit their jobs and then they've got no flipping idea. They've no job, loads of time to do property because they've got no job, but then they waste the time. If you're not already making use of your free time, what makes you think you're going to make use of more free time? Use the free time you have available, become very smart with your time, replace your income, and then jump when you've built your parachute. But I got to 10, I was too slow even. I got to 10 grand a month. I remember going to Progressive, and David Siegler, is a trainer at Progressive, was saying to me, when are you quitting your job? And I'm like, oh, I can't yet. And the thing, he tells the story, the thing I used to say to him was, I've got a company car. And he's like, you've got a what? I've got a company car. And I did, because I was driving around construction sites and they paid for I had a car and a fuel card. And I thought this was a bonus and it was brilliant. The reality was it was a chain that was holding me in my job, because I was paying benefit in kind tax, massive tax on the car, tax on the fuel card, and I didn't see it. So I was paying all this money for my company car that I didn't see because it was taken before I got paid. And I'm staying in the job, but also I had a fear that it could all go wrong again. So I almost had to get over my negative belief of, this all went wrong for me once, it'll all go wrong again. I need to be very safe before it does. I got to 10 grand a month. I went 3 days a week. 6 months later, I quit fully. Now, I gave up. When I quit fully, I got rid of the company car. I took on one rent-to-rent property that brought in around 800 quid a month, and I leased a car, moves, flies, floats, control it. I leased a car and had enough money from the rent-to-rent property to pay for the lease on the car and the fuel for the car and the servicing for the car. And I basically still had a free car, except this time I had a freedom from a job as well. So you're closer to your first car, you're closer to your nice car, you're closer to, don't be trapped by the trappings of a job. See the bigger picture.
Mm. Yep, sound advice, I think. I've got a couple of people saying hi. Hey, Kenny. Kenny is stuck at work, so he's watching from work. Great, thanks for tuning in, Kenny. I just had another question to you, Kevin. I think this is really, great advice, by the way. One thing that I always kind of wanted to know is, you come across a lot of people, you train a lot of people, you mentor a lot of people, and you must see a lot of similarities in people when it comes to, how they approach things. What do you see is the biggest obstacle that people come up against, and why they don't actually make it? Because obviously you come across a lot of people who do the courses, do even the mentoring, and then it doesn't work out for them. What's the biggest obstacle that you think people need to just get over and sort of tackle differently that will help them to actually become successful?
It comes back to some of what Peter was saying about you never quitting. I look, if you look at sport, I'll come into detail in this a little bit, but if you look at sport, when Manchester United were winning, if you like football, were winning all the Premier Leagues, they used to call it Fergie time. Alex Ferguson, Fergie time. They scored goals in the last minute. If you look at Liverpool the last couple of years, they call it Kloppage time, Jurgen Klopp, because they're scoring goals in the last minute. They never give up, never say die. It's not over till the bell rings. If you watch any sport, basketball in America, etc., the winning points come in the last couple of minutes. It's because sports people are trained, right, to the winners in sport, they are trained to practice like it's a game and play like it's practice. And then they're taught and they're indoctrinated to you are not dead, you have not lost, you are not out of the game until that buzzer rings. And when your buzzer rings, that's when you are going in the ground in a coffin or being burned to whatever way you choose to go out. But while I'm here on this planet, that buzzer has not rang and I am in the game. And I don't care if I'm losing at halftime. I don't care if I'm 3-0 down. I'm in the game and I'm going to fight till the last minute. That's what you need. And a lot of people don't have that fight. And you do, by the way. Everyone has it within you. The reason some people don't is it comes back to the second part of your question, comfort. You don't need it. You'd like to be successful. You like the idea of property, but you're not 100% committed to it because you don't, either you're not 100% committed or you don't really need it. You'd like it, but you don't need it. And what I mean by that is it's November now, right? Outside in the dark. I don't need to do this tonight. I only came in at 7, 7:05. I landed in the door of my house, coming back from my office. And I'll be doing stuff later on tonight. I'll spend time with my family and everything as well. But I do it now because I love it, not because I need it. And I'm driven to do stuff. But a lot of people are comfortable. They're in 60. I was on 60, 65 grand a year job. Good income, but I was in huge debt. Other people that I worked with were in good income, 60, 65 grand a year, no debt, maybe a mortgage, a couple of kids, nice car, company car. November evening at 7 o'clock at night. I mean, I can sit in the sofa, arm around the wife, watch some TV, bit of Coronation Street, cook the dinner, go for a pizza, whatever it may be. I don't need to go out, walk the streets, dropping leaflets, knocking on doors, viewing houses, arranging viewings. It's cold out there, guys. It's November. It's cold. It's freezing. It could rain. Oh my God. I'm comfortable. And the way I see it is, I see a lot of people succeed who are young, right? Young, earning in a job 1,500 quid. They come to me for mentorship. They're earning 1,500 quid. They look at it and they go, you know what? 2 rent-to-rent deals, $750 a month each. I'm out of my job. It's easy to get. But the person that comes in on the 65 grand, they have the same ability, the same opportunity, the same everything, but they're on 65 grand and they go, well, you know what? That's 5 deals. That's I'm not sure. Yeah. It's that little bit more that you have to do. So you need the drive, you need the passion, you need the never say die, never quit attitude. This is my dream attitude, and I ain't quitting it. And by the way, it ain't a dream, it's my goal. Because I had a dream for 10 years and I built to debt. It was only when I got a goal that I started to go towards it. You need that, and then you need to just get up off your ass, turn the TV off, and put some effort in. Because honestly, I believe anybody can do this, but we get caught in comfort. It's easy. It's almost the easiest hard work you'll ever do, but it's certainly a heck of a lot easier than a job. But it's just easier to sit on the sofa. It's easier to sit on the sofa than or go down the pub or go bowling or whatever it may be than it is to go and get your time. And I say get your time back. Be careful what you wish for. I mean, I work probably more hours now than I did when I worked in Lang O'Rourke. But you know what? I'm living my passion. I'm not building somebody else's dream. I'm doing stuff. I work from home. I got my table there. I go have a game of snooker if I want. When I miss my family, I walk out the door and I walk into my house, which is just there. And I don't have to go drive 3 hours to a construction site. I don't have to go away Monday to Friday and not see my family till the weekend, etc. It's what do you want in your life? But absolutely anybody can achieve it at any time. But I think the reason they don't is comfort, and it's just that little bit too difficult for them not to try. And then they say this, if it was that simple, everyone would do it. And that's exactly why everybody doesn't do it. Because some people quit because they say if it was that simple, everyone would, and then they don't even try.
Exactly. And I couldn't agree more, Kevin, on this. And if I am honest, I really asked a few times, Istvan, I think we should invite you on this week in the middle of the challenge because of the not just the knowledge and the creative, like-minded, like who you are, but also your energy and your mentality. Because as I said, even if I don't know you in person, but because if you're listening someone, let's say a podcast and all this, the audios and all this stuff and reading the book, somehow you get to know someone. I mean, like thinking and the way they're thinking and all this stuff. And one of the things we try to show the people during this challenge is we're taking a completely different way, more from the marketing point of view, which is one of the most important thing. And the second thing is the never give up attitude, just like you mentioned. Because my opinion, I couldn't agree more. My opinion, people when they fail, they don't actually fail. They just give it up. So regardless what course you go, or regardless what book you read, regardless what content you give to the people, what mentorship you give, if they don't do, and they don't take the actions, and they don't follow the steps, and they just give up, they don't call in the agents, then they're just gonna give up and they're just gonna fail.
My exit's death. While this game's on, and we're in the game of life, while this game's on, we've got a chance of winning it. Do you know what? I'll say one more thing, guys. Say one more thing, right? If you were born poor, I wasn't born poor, by the way. I was born not wealthy. My mum and dad, my dad was a plasterer. We had a farm. My mum, she used to, I never remember her working, because my dad met her when she used to work behind the bar in a pub, but she spent her life looking after 8 kids and looking after the farm and stuff while my dad went out to work. They never drove a car, but we always had food. We always had clothes. We always got to go wherever we wanted to go. You know, I always got a little bit of money going to school and whatever. We're never poor, but we were working class, weren't wealthy. Now, whatever you're born into, if you're born poor, if you're born just okay, that's not your fault. But I promise you, if you leave this earth poor, that is your fault. That's on you, because anybody can become wealthy in this world. You've got years, decades. It takes 3 years to become a millionaire, really. Replace your income 6 months a year. Become a millionaire, maybe 5 years, okay? 5 years, become a millionaire. But some people get there in 3. I'd say 5 years. If you put everything in your soul, your heart, your guts, your passion into it, you'll get there, right? But the problem a lot of people do is they're like, oh, well, I want to be a millionaire in 6 months. That's a load of shit. You ain't going to be a millionaire in 6 months. Replace your income. Just replace your income, get your time back.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Exactly. And the other thing is,
Peter, is it just, sorry, Peter, is it just me, or is your microphone really bad? Kevin, is that? I don't know. It's coming through really bad for me. Is that, Kevin, is that the same to you?
Is it okay now?
Well, when you talk, I've got a little bit of a...
Yeah, I've got massive feedback. Yeah,
I don't know then what's the issue.
Okay, not sure. Anyway, keep going.
Okay. So yeah, exactly the same thing. Just let me know if it's any problem. Yeah, it's exactly the same thing. Like people, sometimes when you are just in a day job and you just wanna get out, and sometimes people I was the same. Like I wanted to go to become a millionaire straight away or billionaire. You can't go there. It's like the same thing. For me, let's say you mentioned yourself, you meant Mark and Rob, they are way above you. And let's say for you, they are example. You want to get there. Let's say for Istvan and for myself, let's say your level, it's a good way to go there before we want to move any further. But people who still working in the daytime, maybe a good level to come our level when we able to afford to leave our job and do our business. We are not millionaires. We never claim we are, but we are all having our own time. We're doing what we love, and this is the first step. You can't go straight away and become a millionaire or a billionaire. So that's absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And anybody is watching and listening to this, I think it's we quite summarized what the main things and why people fail.
Yeah, absolutely. We got Andy who's sent us a little message, Kevin. So he's asking, what do you do when you switch off? Do you switch off? I guess is the question. The first.
Go see my wife. All right. Okay. Right. No. I literally during the day, if I'm working here in my office, literally I said I'm sitting on my desk. I'll knock a few balls around. I play a bit of snooker. I love Liverpool football. I watch football. If Liverpool have a game on TV, I'm watching it, or it's on my phone. So I'll be on my computer. I'll watch the game on my phone while I'm working. So I'll work and watch it. That's not really switching off, though, is it? He asked if I switch off. I do watch Liverpool games while I'm still working, and I play snooker while I'm working. How do I switch off? I try and spend a bit of time with my family. Although sometimes I'll be like with my family, and I don't switch off. I'll take calls from you guys, you know, from Istvan, from different people and stuff. My wife's just messaged me now going, where the hell are you? But I don't switch off very much, because I don't switch off because when I was in a job and I came out of Lang O'Rourke, I used to switch off. You know, like I'm out, that's it. I walk out the door of work, I'm switching off. Yeah. I love what I do. I love property. I love negotiating a deal. I love talking to people about property. This is switched. If somebody said to me 5, 6, 7 years ago that I could be online in 2020 having this conversation with you guys, I'd be like, Irish off. That's never going to happen. That's like, this is switched off for me. I'm find something that you're passionate about and you don't work a day in your life. I'm switched off.
Well, you certainly seem quite relaxed when we talk to us about this sort of thing. So, and I know that every time I speak to you about anything property related, you know, it's never a problem. It doesn't matter what time, you know, what day of the week. You know, many times we've had conversations over the weekend, late at night, early in the morning, driving, whatever the case may be. So it's certainly never been a problem. And to be honest, I feel the same about it as well. It doesn't really feel like work because I actually enjoy doing it. So I agree. And I think that probably comes from the passion, you know, the fact that you add value, to people, you add value to whoever you're working with, whether that's your mentees or, you know, people who you're buying a house from or tenants or whoever. So you give a lot of value. And I think that drives a lot of extra passion as well, even though you had some already, but it just adds more sort of fuel to the fire. So I completely agree with you on that one.
What I'd also say, Istvan, is I'd recommend for everyone here to get a job in Lang O'Rourke for 12 months. You work in Lang O'Rourke for 12 months, right? And you walk out that door 12 months later and anything is switched off.
So this is your holiday, basically, right, Kevin?
Literally.
Nice. Right, so we've got one more question to you, Kevin, and we're gonna probably let you go because I understand it's 8:30. You haven't seen your family very much. I saw you being live earlier when you were at your patch in your office, so you clearly been driving a lot as well today. So you must be probably knackered. But one thing we wanted to ask is, people make decisions, right? What were the worst and the best decisions you've ever made in both business and life?
Oh, geez. Okay, I'll do worst decision I ever made was buying in Eastern Europe. I mean, that's an easy one. Best decision I ever made was to invest in my education. Finally, I mean, it was an easy decision for me because I was so much in debt. And a lot of people look at it for the cost of education and go, you know what, that's quite a bit of money. You know, 3 grand, 5 grand, whatever it may be. I was in so much debt, 100 odd grand in debt. Another few grand was like in for a penny, in for a pound. Easy decision because I was screwed anyway. But so best decision was invest in my education. That's the best and worst in property. Best decision worst decision personally. Worst decision personally. Asking for free rent in London, because when I asked for free rent in London, right, that meant that I had free money and I ended up going to Eastern Europe. So I put that down as the worst decision ever, asking for free rent. Best decision ever was one night in 2012, 13 and a bit, whatever it was. I'm losing time now. I can't remember. A few years ago, 7 odd years ago, 6 years ago, one night, my wife's going to kill me for this because I can't remember when it was. I hope she doesn't listen. A few years ago, we got married 2016, so a couple of years before that, whatever, middle of 14. One night one day I had a call from somebody off Spare Room looking for a room to rent. And one night, 2 girls showed up at the door and I had 2 rooms in my 3-bed house. And I showed them around and I let them move in. Best decision of my life, because a few months later, one of them turned out to be my girlfriend and my future wife. So had I not placed that out on Spare Room, had I not had that rent-to-rent deal, had I not met them in the evening to show them the rooms and told them I'd accept them without any referencing, because she was kind of hot. I didn't need a reference. Don't always reference your tenants. Don't always check them out. I mean, check them out. Do check them out, but just not in that way. That would be my best decision.
Awesome. But see, so property did get you that deal as well in the end, right?
It did. Yeah. Another thing my dad always used to. Hey, another thing my dad used to always say to me is, "You're never gonna find a wife playing pool and sitting at home." Well, actually, I found one sitting at home.
Brilliant. Look, Kevin, it's been absolutely amazing having you on, and really, really appreciate that you could, take a little bit of time out of your busy schedule. I know you're a very busy man, but yeah, really appreciate you coming on. So hopefully everyone's enjoyed it. We certainly enjoyed it. Peter, your first time you met Kevin face to face. So yeah, look, really appreciate it. Absolutely fantastic to have you. Anything else you want to say to people who are watching still?
Yeah, I do. Guys, you're in a 7-day challenge with the lads. Listen to what they're saying, do the damn actions, and yeah, let's start taking action, right? Take the opportunity. They put on an amazing challenge. Take the opportunity to do the actions, follow what they're saying, and let's get you started in your journey. Go moving, man. Don't waste the opportunity they're giving you this week, because they're putting their time into it. You put yours in.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the endorsement on that one. Yeah, absolutely, guys. If you're on a challenge, or if you're not, still time to join. Come and join us. If you're on it, keep going with your actions. Thanks, Kevin. Really, really appreciate it. Again, absolutely fantastic to have you on. And hopefully we haven't taken too much of your evening up. So thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone, for joining. And we will sign out now. Cheers.